Coming up on Let's Get to the Points.
Tonight we are bringing you another most requested show, and it's about buying groups.
Cancellations are part of the process. It can happen if you don't follow certain rules that are set by the retailers.
So Mac, do you have any tips for me with all my canceled orders?
This is where some tips will come in. For example, jigging address. Jigging means just to tweak.
So you can scale up your volume and do $250,000, $500,000, $1 million worth of buying groups.
And then be like Mac and go to the Maldives.
That's right.
Have you ever had any negative experiences?
Oh yeah, I've had multiple, to say the least, but some of them could have been preventable.
I feel like this is a little bit more of confession time for me. That's not even the worst of it. I even had this pickup van come to my house, and I want you to think of like the scariest movies you've ever seen with these big vans with like no windows.
Were they wearing ski masks? Because that's what I'm picturing.
And now, let's get to the points.
She loves making family travel first class without the first class cost. It's Serena. For him, no travel style is off limits and no destination is too far. It's Miguel. And he loves to use his credit card points and miles for unforgettable experiences in first class and beyond. It's Mitch Shannon.
Hi there. Thank you for joining us on Let's Get to the Points audio video podcast, where we bring the very best in tips and tricks in the world of miles, points, and travel. I'm Mitch Shannon, joined by my co-hosts who are the best experts you're going to find in everything points, miles, and travel. First up, from gold to precious metals, she's dabbled in it all. It's Serena.
Hi, everyone.
How to meet minimum spend, getting more rewards, just a couple of things he's into. It's Miguel.
Hey, what's up?
And he knows the best deals and tips when it comes to buying groups. It's our extra special guest co-host, Mac.
Hi, everyone.
Please help us out. Click the subscribe button below now to our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you watch or listen. Also, please sign up for our weekly newsletter where we send it to you every Friday with the latest news in points and miles. Now let's do it. Let's get to the points. Tonight, we are bringing you another most requested show, and it's about buying groups. And I don't know why I feel like I need to be whispering about this. Like, buying groups is like this naughty thing. But when it comes to buying groups, the points and miles community, they have used this as a method of helping them to meet minimum spend requirements on new cards, earn more points and miles, and even go some of the extra miles in earning retail rewards on top of all of that. Now, there is a lot of risk when it comes to these groups, and we're going to cover all of that, talk about our experiences, and even give our best tips when it comes to all of this. And to help with our discussion tonight, we have our extra special guest co-host, Mac, from his YouTube channel, Luxury Travel POV, with us. And as always, we invite you to join in the conversation online by leaving us a comment below. No better place to start than just at the beginning. So let's do it. Mac, I know you've slightly dabbled in buying groups just a little bit, right? I think we consider you an expert in all of that.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to increase my points and miles portfolio by leveraging buying groups methods for the last 2 years. So maybe I'm an expert, but I'm still learning in the game. Okay,
so before we officially start, I think I need to break out the button.
Here we go.
That's right. I got it right here. I don't think any of you know about this, or I don't think you've even seen it. We've almost had 100 shows here, and I've never had to use the button, but I think it's time we use the button.
Ooh, what's the button for, Mitch?
All right, tell us.
I got to hit it. Are you ready? I'm going to hit it. Open it.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm going to hit it.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Whoa.
Okay, I'm going to stop the button. I know that was painful. Even though you can't see poor Miguel's ears, they are red right now because that was a very loud noise. All right, I had to push that button because of just how important tonight's show is all about and what we're going to say. Using buying groups in the points and miles community, it can be very risky, very, very risky for several reasons, especially when your credit cards are involved. While these groups can offer a very fast way to hit some minimum spend requirements and earn rewards, some people steer clear of these because of the large amount of risk that's involved. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, about the risks, and we're going to go into everything. And guys, just so you know, by the way, the button really isn't plugged into anything. So it's just another one of my little, bits. So there you go. All right. Speaking of rabbit holes, where do we start with all of this tonight with the buying groups?
So a buying group is a group that buys high demand items and then they resell them. So let's say that a buying group wants a particular item like an Apple Watch. You, as a participant, would buy that Apple Watch for the buying group. You would have that Apple Watch shipped to the buyer, and then the buying group would reimburse you for that purchase. The benefit is you get to keep the credit card rewards you earned from that purchase. So why do buying groups even exist? Oftentimes, a lot of these items have a maximum limit per person. For example, an Apple Watch, if you were to buy one, you can probably buy maybe a maximum of 3 at a time. But these buying groups, they want to accumulate mass quantities of these items. So they have people like you and me, all of us, in these buying groups to help them purchase these items so that they can then resell them to their buyers. Okay, so why do people want to participate in buying groups? Well, the short answer is the credit card rewards. Buying groups can be an option for people when they don't have other ways to meet a minimum spend. So you get to keep the points and miles that you earned from buying those products. This is a way to earn tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands in points and miles without flying or spending more than you need to.
Another reason why people might want to use buying groups is for elite status, whether that's an airline or a hotel. There are some credit cards out there, for example, the hotel cards like the World of Hyatt card or one of the Hilton cards, where if you spend a certain amount, maybe like $15,000, you'll get a free night certificate. Now, instead of you actually spending $15,000, you could actually use this card for your buying group activity and you're going to earn that free night certificate. For the airlines, they all have their credit cards. And if you spend a certain amount on their credit cards, that could help increase your elite qualifying miles or whatever they track for you to get elite status with that airline. That way you can get waived baggage fees, upgrades, or whatever it is. So this is another reason why people use buying groups to earn their way to elite status, whether it's an airline or a hotel. Let's walk through a real life example of what that would look like, Serena. So let's say that a buying group is asking members to buy an Apple Watch, right? Let's say an Apple Watch is $300. Amazon maybe has a sale on an Apple Watch that is, $300, but maybe they can sell it for a little bit more, but that you are limited on how many you can buy. Usually it's maybe 3 per household or per member. What you would do is you would sign up, tell the buying group, yes, I'm going to buy this item. When you buy that through, say, Amazon in this example, you're actually going to ship it to the warehouse of the buying group and you're going to submit your tracking number. So then once you actually purchase it, you are going to ship it to their address. And this is where some of that risk that we're going to talk about later on comes in. Once they receive it and confirm that is your order, they will reimburse you for those $300. Let's say you paid using your Capital One Venture X, which earns 2 times the miles on the purchase. So for $300, you would earn 600 points. Once they reimburse you, you really didn't spend money out of pocket. That, of course, depends on how much they're paying you for the watch. Not all the deals are going to make sense for everybody because sometimes they could pay you retail costs. Sometimes they might pay you a few percentage over or under. That is where you're going to determine whether a deal works out for you. The payouts could be anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind because you're still responsible for paying your credit card statement. So in this example, you earned a few hundred points and you really didn't spend money out of pocket. That's how a typical example would look from a bird's eye view. So this $300 Apple Watch just got you 600 Capital One Venture Miles. Now that might not sound like a lot, but imagine doing this a few times a month, maybe under your name, under your Player 2's name, and scaling that up to more big ticket items. And you can see how you can earn rewards without actually spending money out of pocket.
And this is the beauty of buying groups and why people want to learn more about them and why we're doing a show for you. It's one of our most highly requested shows. So let's talk about the different companies that are out there to work with. What are the different buying groups that you've used, Mac?
I've used multiple buying groups over the last couple of years. For beginners, I'll usually recommend to start with a company called Buy For Me Retail. They have a website that is easier to use by everyone. They now go by bfmr.com. And most of the time with all buying groups, you have to sign up. You have to have a login. And then you will see all the deals that they have available. Beyond BFMR, there are also other companies that I use that are called Buy the Buyer Group. And then there are also Max Out Deals. And there are also private groups that may not be public, but if you are aware and you've been doing this for a while, you will know them, and they are on WhatsApp, Telegram, and then all those social media groups.
These are some of the companies that we've personally worked with, but these companies might not always be around. So how do you properly vet a company? There's always going to be risk, but how can you get comfortable enough to actually go through with your first buying group purchase? The first thing that I would say is that you want to start small, right? So you don't want to start with ordering 3 MacBooks. So instead, you might want to start with something smaller, maybe like an Apple Watch, an Apple Pencil, so you can learn how the process goes from beginning to end, from when you sign up for the deal, when it ships, to when they receive it, you get reimbursed, you feel happy, you feel comfortable, you start scaling up on the volume of what you're ordering, and you get comfortable with the process of that particular buying group. Now, I think the best way for you to actually choose a company to work with, to join as part of a buying group, is to actually learn from the community, people that are already doing it. So for example, we're talking about a few companies because we've personally worked with them. Another great way is to go to these meetups. Meetups are great to learn from the community and what people are doing to earn credit card rewards, which companies are using, which buying groups. That's another great way to do it. This is where an online community like our Elevate community can come in handy, because you can learn from other people directly. Hey, this is a company that I use. This is how long they took to pay for the product, and I feel comfortable.
Miguel, that's a great tip. And I'm glad that you brought up Elevate, by the way, because we are very excited. The day is finally here. We are launching our online group called Elevate. It's pretty easy to join. We're going to give you details a little later in the show, but this is what the group is designed for. Exactly what we're doing on this show tonight, to interact and communicate with other people that are in the community, and they are going to be able to help you. Maybe even find the perfect buying group that isn't publicly known, data tips, all of this stuff. So now is the time to join our group Elevate. And later in the show, we're going to give you the full details on how you can do that.
Miguel, I like how you mentioned about starting with buying one item. I think that's a great tip for beginners. There are items as low as $10, like iPhone cases. You can start by buying one iPhone case with each company, and it gives you a feel for how it is like to work with each of those buying groups. And then from there, you can decide which ones you want to work with down the road. I think that will give you a better idea of the different buying groups that are out there and which ones you might want to work with. Here is a general overall picture of the basic steps that you would take if you want to participate in a buying group. So first, you want to sign up for a buying group through their website. Second, look for their posted deals. Then you want to review the details and make sure that the item is in stock and your price that you see matches the price that the buying group posted. Then you'll want to reserve that purchase if the buying group requires it. Then you'll order the item, and then you'll look out for the tracking number and enter it into the buying group's website. And the last step is reimbursement. So all the different buying groups have different varying number of days where they reimburse. This is where you trying out each buying group comes into play, where you get a feel of how quickly each buying group will reimburse you.
All right, let's start with some of our personal examples of how we've used buying groups. And I personally don't use these a lot. The only times that I've really used a buying group was when I believe to meet the minimum spend requirement, a business platinum, which was like $15,000, because I cannot organically spend $15,000 in 3 months or whatever the minimum spend was. So I used the buying group to help me reach that requirement. And I did buy some electronics. I have used Buy From Me Retail, and the total volume that I've done is a little over $6,000. So I haven't done a lot, but I've done just enough to meet my minimum spend requirement. That's what I felt comfortable with. And I've only done deals that were getting reimbursed at retail cost or slightly below. The ones that I did slightly below retail was because I was meeting a minimum spending requirement and I was getting a welcome offer that exceeded the delta between what I was getting reimbursed and the retail cost of that item. So I haven't dealt with these a lot. I did do maybe 2 or 3 deals with Max Out Deals, that other company, but I haven't done this a lot. So I want to hear about you, Mac, about maybe some of your experiences and, what you've done.
So just like you, I've had to open up a credit card that the minimum spend was a little bit higher than the organic spend that my family and I will do on a monthly or like 3-month spend. What I decided to do is start going into buying groups. And I remember the first items that I purchased were just small items, just like you, on Amazon for beginners. And that's what I usually recommend as well. I purchased some iPads at the time. And those iPads, I believe they retail around $250. Between my wife and I, our account. So we use two accounts. We purchased the items and then we shipped to the buying group. And it was closer to also Black Friday time where there were a lot of sales and there were a lot of deals available. So we purchased those iPads, shipped to the buying groups, waited a week or two later, and then get the reimbursed directly in our account. So with time, I started diversifying and using other buying groups and learning more about the tips and tricks on how I can elevate and increase the volume. There was an opportunity for me to open up a business platinum as well, which required $15,000 spent, and I couldn't do it directly myself. So what I did was I started learning more about how do I make sure that I can increase the volume for my buying groups. I started buying computers from different vendors or different deals that are beyond Amazon, for example, Dell, and then learning about how Dell work or how other companies or how other retailers work. And I will buy those computers and do more volumes. And fast forward today, I would say my volume is about around $250,000 so far.
Wow, you elevated that for sure.
You're a heavy hitter.
Wow, $250,000. That's pretty impressive. So, I'll just share my history with the buying groups a little bit. I feel like this is a little bit more of confession time for me. I've always been very ashamed of using buying groups, and I'm not really sure why that is, but really kind of has a lot to do with how people see them in the community, as you can lose a lot. There's a lot of risk involved as well. Now, I'm going to admit I've done some pretty crazy stuff with all these buying groups, like driving to these really weird warehouses in the really bad part of town to drop off a bunch of computers and AirPods.
Wait, in California?
Yeah, in California, the really, really bad part of Los Angeles. Yeah.
There are some bad parts.
Yeah, there are. And that's not even the worst of it. I even had this pickup van come to my house, and I want you to think of like the scariest movie you've ever seen, with these big vans with like no windows, to pick up like, several $1,000s worth of computers and Apple AirPods. That's confession time for me.
Mitch, and they know where you live.
I know, right?
Well, first class is not going to book itself, right, Mitch?
That's right.
This is how he does it, people.
This is truth time. But, back when I first learned about these buying groups, there really wasn't much known. It was some random guy on the internet, and believe it or not, he was charging people to get into buying groups, which that was just weird. Like, he wasn't even connected to them. He was basically selling the link to sign up to get into this group, and it was really, really weird. But anyway, I started off very slow, anywhere between $500 to $1,000 a month. Then I started to ramp up over time. 1 year, I got up to six figures in buying groups. And for me, that was pretty nuts. So I'm pretty impressed by your $250,000 figure there, Mac. I still can't believe I went that high. That was pretty crazy the year I did that. I don't even think I told my P2 that we did that much. But there's a lot of risk. And I've dealt with a lot of these issues over the years, like lost packages, undelivered packages, untracked items, stuff that you normally don't think that is going to happen with these buying groups. So yeah, that's my history. The van was really scary that came to my house. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. If I was going to get a check or if they were going to take rope and tie me up and throw me in the back.
That's exactly what I imagined, Mitch. Being kidnapped by a buying group in a van outside his house. I don't think I'd be okay with a van showing up to my house to pick up some electronics. Not okay.
But they cut you the check on the spot. So that was the good thing about it. They had a little printer in the van. They print it out and give you the check.
Did they really?
Yes, they did.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The van would roll up and then you're like, oh my God, I'm standing here with like all these Apple computers, right? They would open the door and they would come out and they'd have the little barcode scanner and they'd scan one at a time and they'd just throw it in the van. And then they would total you out. And then they'd had this little mobile printer they took out. They printed the check and handed you the check. And then they closed the door and sped off. That's how it worked.
Were they wearing ski masks? Because that's what I'm picturing.
That's what I imagined, Miguel. It just goes to show that there's no win-win-wins all around, right? I mean, you either go with this van that shows up in front of your house and risk being kidnapped, but you get paid right away, or you buy online and wait a few weeks to get paid. What would you prefer? I don't know.
Actually, I think there's some buying groups where you can actually print your own check. If I'm not mistaken, Max Out Deals was doing that. Is that right, Mac?
Yes. So some of these buying groups will send you printed checks and then you can just print them and upload them into your bank account, essentially, instead of waiting for an ACH transfer.
See, Mitch, you don't need a van showing up at your house.
I guess not.
Now you can just print your own check now.
Even better.
Okay, with my experience, I have worked with two companies, Buy For Me Retail and PointsMaker. With PointsMaker, I had a problem one time where I was delivering them some AirPods and they lost one of my packages. And I reached out to them. They said that they never got it. I don't really believe that answer, but they told me to go back to Amazon and try to get a refund. Thankfully, Amazon was able to refund the item to me. After that experience, and this is why it's great to work with different companies, I said I'm not working with PointsMaker anymore because of that bad experience. Maybe it wasn't their fault. Maybe I was just unlucky with that package, but I've never had the same problem with Buy For Me Retail. And from what I hear, I think the customer service at Buy For Me Retail is a little bit better, where they will work with you more and they're more responsive. I decided to move all my buying group business to Buy For Me Retail. And I've only been buying from Amazon because I have tried buying from Dell, from Target, from Costco, but all my orders get canceled. The one reliable retailer that has always worked for me is Amazon. So I've only stuck with buying from Amazon for Buy For Me Retail. So Mac, do you have any tips for me with all my canceled orders?
Cancellations are part of the process. It can happen if you don't follow certain rules that are set by the retailers. If you recall, these buying groups will ask to buy certain products when they are on sales. These retailers like Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart, or Costco, they will have a limit on the quantity, how many you can buy during a specific time. And in their system in the back end, they will also have some sort of rules that you're not aware of on how many you can buy. Understanding each retail is really helpful to help you increase your volume. So let's take an example of Amazon. Amazon is usually the easier one to buy from, as they usually don't cancel and they don't care who you're sending the item to. But if you are buying, there's a number of quantity you can buy per order or during a specific time as well with Amazon. So be careful of that as well. And it's good to have a P2, P3, and maybe a P4 where you can use multiple accounts to purchase the same item and increase your volume. You also mentioned Costco. Costco also usually have cancellations. This is where some tips will come in. For example, jigging address. If you don't know the term jigging means just to tweak something, but it'll still go to the same address. So essentially, one of the easier tips with jigging an address is just to change the formatting on how the address looks, but the carrier will still deliver the item to the right address. So one example is you could add ABC at the beginning of the address, and that will look different in the system of the retailer, and then your order will go through. So those are some form of jigging, or you can add a little bit of a period here, a comma here, and within the address just to make it look different. Or you can add an apartment number, even though the address doesn't have an apartment or a suite. These tips can help you avoid cancellations and then increase your buying group quantities.
So for example, if you're shipping to a buying group and the address is 101 Main Street, you said add an ABC in the beginning?
Correct. So you can add an ABC or 3 letters at the beginning, and just to make the address look a little bit different.
Oh, I never thought about adding letters in the beginning. I thought that would screw it all up. But so ABC 101 Main Street, and that will work?
Right. So like Costco, they are easy to work with when you jig address. You don't have to make things complicated. You can make it ABC, any other letter, or you can put those letters at the end of the address as well.
I think you got some really good tips there, Mac, on jigging these addresses, because I think it's important for people to really understand why you have to do this with these addresses, because a lot of these buying groups, okay, well, most all of them operate in states that are tax-free, that don't have sales tax. So what are those states? Like Oregon and Delaware, right? There's also New Hampshire. These are just a couple of the states. So it's kind of limited on where you can send these items, because that's the whole premise of this, is buying the product below cost or at cost without having to pay that additional tax. So by doing that and shipping it to these states and avoiding that sales tax is what really kind of makes it somewhat profitable for these buying groups. And even for yourself, buying the item at zero cost out of pocket, which is basically a break-even item. So I think a good tip is if you are in one of these tax-free states like Oregon, New Hampshire, Delaware, you probably should be hitting these buying groups up as much as you can, because if you have issues jigging the address to have it shipped to the buying group, you might be able to find them and they do a local drop-off to where you can have it shipped to your house and then just drive it there and have it dropped off as well.
Just don't ask for that van to show up in the front of your house.
Yeah,
Mitch.
that's another one too.
Okay, so if you're a little bit confused on why there's canceled orders, this is when you start getting a little bit more advanced. If you're a beginner, we do recommend that you go with Amazon, which is more beginner friendly, less likely of a chance of your orders getting canceled. Once you start scaling up and ordering from other retailers like Costco, Walmart, Target, or others, you might run into this problem where they cancel your orders. Now, why do they cancel your orders? Now, these retailers will have contracts with the vendors like Apple or Dell where they state that they cannot sell directly to resellers. They want to sell directly to consumer. That is why on the back end, some of these retailers will have these policies, which is pretty much to avoid fraud. They'll think the resellers as kind of a fraud because it's against their contract. And they also want to lower their risk because members of buying groups will be sending to the same address. They start flagging these addresses like, why are so many items going to the same address in New Hampshire or Oregon, right? Or Delaware. So what happens is they'll flag that address and any order going to that address, they will cancel. That's why these orders get canceled. But by you jigging your address, the system might not catch it because it's not the address that is flagged for cancellation. So by you adding ABC 101 Main Street, the system will be like, this is not going there. But in reality, the carrier is still going to ship it to that address because that's where the jigging comes in. And that's where, learning from each other here in this community will help because you get to
learn how to jig.
Yeah, because you learn how to jig, and that means less canceled orders for you. So you can scale up your volume and do $250,000, $500,000, $1 million worth of buying groups. I mean,
and then be like Mac and go to the Maldives.
That's right.
But I really want to say here that you should never be doing more than you can afford to pay because this is a risky situation, a risky scenario. So you never want to buy more in your buying groups than you can afford to pay off because you're still responsible for paying that. Personally, I've only had one issue, and that was with Amazon didn't deliver a computer. It didn't show up as delivered. So I did reach out to Amazon. They refunded me for the item. But, even though it was only maybe $1,000, I was still a little bit scared. I was like, I'm going to have to pay this if they don't refund me because, that's the risk I took. Have you ever used a buying group? Do you have good experiences, bad experiences? Let us know in the comments. We want to hear about your experience.
All right. One group that I still use today is buyinggroup.com. And Mark Mann, I think he's the owner there. And what I really like about this is it's a little bit different for everyone, right? He's based in Portland, and Mark, I like how he's really active with his community on Discord. The website's pretty good too. He tries to keep it fair for everyone, even if you're a small buyer. So I appreciate that as well. Everyone loves to rave about Buy For Me Retail. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of them. I feel there's a little secrecy there with them. I don't know. That's just me. But I've had a few issues with all these buying groups, so I don't know what the right answer is. I think these communities that you can get into to get data points and experiences with other people is the best way to handle this if you are going to get into buying groups, because using them in the points and miles community, it's very risky, very, very, very risky for several reasons, especially when your credit cards, they are involved. All these groups, they offer you a very fast way to hit minimum spend requirements and earning those rewards. And sometimes they kind of operate in a gray area, and we've kind of talked about that a little bit, where they could violate the credit card issuer's terms. So that's something else that you want to think about as well. And if the issuer suspects that you are engaging in manufacturing spending, reselling for profit, it could also have your account shut down. You could forfeit your accounts, or you could even be blacklisted as well. Am I painting this picture too bleak? Am I scaring people? I feel like I am. I don't know. What do you all think?
No, I think people want the points and miles.
But I think is good for us to let them know all these risks for them to make the decision on their own. These are all facts that can happen, things that can happen. So,
Mac, with all the buying group experience that you've had, have you ever had any negative experiences?
oh yeah, I've had multiple, to say the least, but some of them could have been preventable and some of them that were out of your control or my control. I can give you some examples. There are times where, for example, like you have mentioned, Amazon or the carrier will not deliver the item. Sometimes the buying groups will just tell you to deal with the carrier or to deal with the retailer. So in that case, sometimes if you have proof it was never delivered, yes, they can reimburse you. There are times where the item will be delivered and then they will be damaged. So the buying group will not be able to reimburse you and will decide to return the item. So it will be for you to go through the hassle, going through that process and get the item returned and explain to the retailer the reason why it got returned and get your money back. There are multiple examples where you also mentioned account shutdown. There are times where you will use other portals to get extra points, like for example, Rakuten. And within their terms and policies, sometimes they don't like people doing a lot of reselling and get a lot of points, where I've seen Rakuten accounts getting shut down because the retailer reached out to them about it. So there's the risk involved, but if you follow steps and also you don't go above what you can manage, I think you should be okay.
So Mac, I know you do a lot of volume. Has there ever been a time when you've actually lost money and didn't get reimbursed?
Luckily, I've always been reimbursed. So I will make sure, let's pray that it continues like that. But I've heard incidents where people did not get reimbursed or there was a long delay in getting payment. Recently, I was working with a buying group where they had people come into their warehouse and steal their items. So everybody dealing with them had to wait very, very long time. I think almost 2 months to get their payment in, and you still owe the money to the credit card and you don't want to incur interest. So you still owe that money and you have to pay it. So it's always good to make sure that you spend the amounts that you can manage and you can sleep good at night.
That's a really good point. So the warehouse was broken into, items were stolen, so people had to wait a few months to get reimbursed, but that company did end up reimbursing you.
They did.
That's the good news. But in the meantime, you still had to pay off your credit card bill. So that's very important, where you need to be able to have that money just in case you're not going to get reimbursed in time.
Right.
Mac, another point that I think is really important is when these buying groups are buying these items, they are very specific on the items, even down to the color and the model. And that can really trip some people up as well when we speak about mistakes and stuff like that. So I wanted you to kind of talk about that a little bit. When you're buying these items and you're going through these portals, you have to be extra careful because sometimes they'll give you the link to that item and you have to kind of go out around. And can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yes, as you mentioned, is correct. When the buying groups want a specific item, they are really specific about the color, the model, and all those information. So when you are using other portals and you are going on other website, you have to be extra careful just to make sure that you are detailed, the items that they are looking for, the items that you committed to buy. There are instances where some people bought the wrong items, then the buying groups will not reimburse and will have to return the items completely. So you will spend so much time going through that process and then have to return and not meet your minimum spend. And that is not a good idea. Making sure that you keep track of all the items that you bought, the price that you've committed to and you bought it at, and how much they mention on their page that they will reimburse you for. Keeping all that information is really critical because sometimes the buying groups may change the pricing that they will pay out for an item a couple of days after the deals have been out. So you want to make sure that the day you've committed to the item, the price that you've committed to is still, even though it may be on the website, you'll still have a record of that and you are collecting the item and the price that they will pay you all for the item.
Yeah, that's true. Because when they change the price that they reimburse you, they may accidentally send you a price that's lower than what you agreed to, right? That mistakes like that do happen. So it's very good to keep track of that.
Right. And sometimes these buying groups are really good at making sure once you reach out to them and explain the situation and you catch it, they will reimburse you accordingly. But if you don't, it will be at your loss.
Yeah, I've had that problem before with Buy For Me Retail one time where what they paid out to me was different from what I originally thought it would be. And they made the correction, no problem. If I had not followed up, I would have just lost out on that, right? Not knowing.
It's always good to keep maybe a spreadsheet for yourself and keep track of all the quantity that you bought, the price that you've committed to for the payout, and also the tracking information. Sometimes they will reach out and say, hey, we haven't received your product, but even though it's showing as received, if you have the tracking, just make sure that you can resubmit that and then get reimbursed on time.
Mac, one more thing that I do want to talk about is this isn't just like you log onto the website and you're just going to buy a bunch of things. A lot of these buying groups, they have limited amounts that they are looking to buy. So you got to be kind of careful with that as well. You want to make sure you get your reservation in there, and whatever tracking system that they use, you really want to learn that interface, because this isn't just, oh, I'm going to buy this and send it to them and get reimbursed. It's very different than that, right?
Right. And most of the buying groups, they do have a reservation policy where you have to reserve the quantity that you are committing to buy, so that they are aware how many items they will be getting into their inventory, or they should expect. The tips that I usually tell people is that when you see the deal and you are interested in the deal, make sure that you reserve before going and start doing your research to figure out if you are able to buy this item or not, because you can still uncommit and you usually have maybe sometimes 12 hours or 24 hours to make a decision and purchase the item. But making sure that you commit, because if others commit to the quantity that the buying groups is looking for, then you won't be able to purchase the item anymore. And if you ship them the item by mistake, they will not be able to reimburse and will have to send you the item back.
Something that we should touch on that Miguel mentioned briefly earlier is these deals and how they're listed and their reimbursement price. So you'll notice on the buying group's website that these products, some of them will be listed below retail value, some will be full retail, and some will be above retail. So full retail means maybe the Apple Watch is listed for $300 on Amazon, and maybe the buying group is going to pay you $300, so you're break even. Above retail means if the Apple Watch is $300, they're paying you maybe $310, so you're making money. There's a profit for you. But below retail means that they might be paying out $290 on a $300 product. So that's below retail. Now let's talk about why someone would want to participate in a below retail deal. Have any of you guys participated in a deal like this?
Personally, I have done some below retail deals, and usually that's maybe 2 or 3%, right? So in this example of the Apple Watch, if you're only getting paid $290, that's about a 3% under retail that you're losing on that deal. But if you're using a card where you're working on a welcome offer, you're getting more than 3% back. For example, right now, the Chase Sapphire Preferred is offering you 100,000 points if you spend $5,000 in the first 3 months. The 100,000 points with the Chase Sapphire Preferred is worth at least $1,250 if you go through their Chase travel portal. That's the minimum value that you can get from that welcome offer. Now, $1,250 out of the $5,000 that you're spending, that's a 25% return. Even though you might be losing 3% on, let's say, the entire $5,000 that you would do on a buying group. You're losing 3%, but you're gaining 25%. You're still up net 22%. I mean, I know that was a lot of numbers, but to keep it simple, if you're working on a welcome offer, most of the time it's going to be worth it, even if you're getting 2 or 3% under retail, because the welcome offer is so much more. One exception that I'm going to add is Mitch's A&A card, because I don't think that welcome offer is worth 3%. If you don't know the running joke here, we're saying that Mitch has every card out there, and the A&A card, his welcome offer, is known to be one of the worst out there. They offer something like 5,000 miles for you to sign up, which, you know, is pretty insignificant when you compare it.
It was recently 10,000, so they're going in the right direction.
Another reason why you might want to do an under retail deal is maybe you're just very close to getting that free night certificate if you spend the $15,000 on your Hyatt card or on your Hilton card, right? So if you're a few $100s away from the $15,000, but you're getting that free night certificate that's going to be worth a couple $100, you know, it might make sense there as well.
And another reason for you to consider below retail offers is that if you have credit cards like American Express or Chase, and you look on the offer side, there might be an offer for that specific retail when you can purchase the item. So if you decide to buy the below retail item that maybe is 2 or 3%, but on the other hand, you have an offer that will give you cash back that will help you break even or even come ahead, then you can consider making and stacking together those offers. Another thing you can also consider is shopping portals. So you can add shopping portals like Rakuten or look at Top Cashback and see what they are offering for these retailers. And then you can stack those offers plus the shopping portals together, and then you can come ahead and break even. So in those use cases, it can make sense for you to go ahead and then purchase the items below retails, because on the back end, you are getting offers back.
So an example of how you can stack these offers is sometimes maybe American Express or Chase will say, hey, you can have, let's say 10% cash back if you buy something at Best Buy, and they'll have a cap, maybe up to $20. So let's say you buy this Apple Watch and you're only getting reimbursed $290 from the buying group. Now you're down $10 right now, but if you used and you activated or enrolled it on that offer, in this example, you would get, let's say 10% cash back on your $300, $30 back, but there was a cap. Maybe there was a cap of either $10 or $20. That can help you offset that $10 loss and you break even or maybe even make profit. So that is how you can stack some of these offers. Now, another thing you could do is stack a shopping portal. Let's say you go through a shopping portal like Rakuten or maybe even one of the airline portals to buy the product from Best Buy. You're also getting additional miles or points that way as well.
Another way for you to stack these offers and then come on top is, for example, let's take the example of Dell, and let's say you live in a free state. If you have the business platinum, for example, they currently give you $200 every 6 months, and you can use that to offset some of the fees and some of the below costs and come ahead. So you can use Dell, for example, those offers and those credit card offers. And I know in the future, the business platinum is changing those offers, and they are essentially reducing the $200 to $150. But on the other hand, they also add in, if you spend $5,000 at Dell, you will get $1,000 back. Most people do not spend that kind of money at Dell. But if you follow these deals and you're part of buying groups, you'll notice that there are a lot of deals that can come from there. And this can come at your advantage, where you purchase items over the course of 12 months through there, and then you get $1,000 back. And this can help you offset some of the fees and all these below deals available. Or if you don't live in those tax-free states, this can also help you offset the taxes and maybe shipping on your deals.
I just realized, if you do buying groups with Dell and do that $5,000 per year worth of Dell buying group products, that completely offsets that high annual fee on the business platinum. So it's a free business platinum.
Absolutely. That's a great strategy. And that gives me reason to actually use that credit coming up. Before I was thinking, what am I going to do with that? But this is a way in. If I can jig my addresses correctly, as Mac taught me, and get my Dell orders through.
Mac, that was a great tip about Dell, because we've talked about that in our newsletter as well. And I think it's going to be really helpful for those people that do live in those tax-free states, because I've never had any luck getting an order through with Dell. I probably got like 20 email addresses that I've ended up getting banned from Dell trying to get an order through to them to a buying group. So I think that's going to be really helpful for those people as well. So do sign up for our email. We got the QR code on the screen right now for you. And we're also going to put the link in the show notes below. We send out deals and news every Friday.
Okay, we shared a lot of tips in this episode, thanks to Mac and his wealth of knowledge. But let's do just a quick rehash of the quick tips for beginners. So if you found all of this overwhelming, this list will help you. So remember, you want to start small. These buying groups have iPhone cases for as little as $7 to $10. Start with Amazon because they are the easiest retailer to work with. You'll want to also diversify your risk by starting off with trying out all the buying groups and seeing which one works better for you. Stay organized, as Max said, with spreadsheets. Take advantage of the portals and credit card offers. And then, as Mac mentioned earlier, those special times of years where there are a lot of products on sale are the best times of years to really go deep into buying groups. That would be Black Friday, Prime Day, Day and all the other major holidays where there are a lot of sales.
Okay, one more tip that I have, Serena, is I think it's kind of important. Well, for me anyway, this is what I do is I try to time when I'm going to be getting these credit cards, the new sign up offers and the bonuses during these big periods of these buying groups when they have these big deals. And that's around like Black Friday, Prime Day. So for me, when there's these bigger type of spends, like you were talking about earlier, Miguel, with the American Express Business Platinum, like that $15,000, $20,000 minimum spending requirement, if you want to go down these avenues and you don't have the ability to make that huge of a spend, this might be a good way to do that, is timing it around when they have these deals. Also, I think it's a bad idea to get involved with buying groups that have these vans that come to your house. That would be my other tip as well that I would offer.
So we've talked about buying groups with regard to electronics like iPhones and iPhone cases, but there are also buying groups related to gift cards, US Mint coins, and also gold. If you want to learn more about all of these things, we are talking about them in our Elevate community. In Elevate, we talk more about insider tips and tricks about buying groups, more ways to jig addresses, and we also have a template to help you stay organized and track your buying group purchases. Take a look in the show notes below to see how you can join our Elevate community. We would love to have you there.
Welcome to our online community, Elevate. Here's everything you can look forward to when you join.
First, you'll unlock access to our video classroom with over 4 hours of videos led by us. These are designed to help you level up your strategy, from earning points to getting business credit cards and even how to redeem for maximum value. We cover it all. We'll even walk you through real-life examples of how we've used points and miles ourselves.
You'll learn our top tips, tricks, and strategies for using credit card rewards to travel for free. Whether that's flights, hotel stays, or luxury upgrades, we show you exactly how to choose the right cards, time your applications, and take advantage of the best offers available.
You'll also get downloadable resources like templates, cheat sheets, and guides, covering everything from earning elite status to navigating flight redemptions and more.
Our best feature is our private community chat. This is where the best daily deals are shared, including mistake fares, flash promos, and hidden opportunities. You'll learn from us and other members our wins and mistakes and stay ahead of what's working right now in the Points of Miles world.
And finally, each month we host our exclusive Elevate Masterclass. This is a live session where our community comes together to share updates, data points, and the latest strategies we're all working on.
We're excited to welcome you to Elevate,
Your next level journey in Points and Miles.
And it all starts right here.
If you want us to do an episode on gift card reselling, let us know in the comments, because we can do a show on gift card reselling, the good, the bad, the ugly. Whether or not there are any vans involved, let us know in the comments.
Mac, you've been a wealth of information on this topic. I know I have learned so much from you, and I'm going to start putting some of your tips to good use. Do you have any other things you'd like to share with us about buying groups?
Thanks, Serena, for having me here. The last tip that I will add is when you buying from the buying group, sometimes when you are not working on a minimum spend, but there's a deal out there where you can still increase your spend, think about the credit cards that you can use that will have a larger or a bigger multiplier for the retail that where you're going to buy from. So for example, if you see a deal from Dell, Apple, or Best Buy, you might be able to use a business gold that you have available if you have one, and then get 4x per dollar, and that can multiply your membership rewards with American Express quickly and increase your point.
That's a great tip, Mac. And I would always go back to what I say. You know, it's just like always getting 2 of something for every dollar that goes out of your pocket. In fact, I think you're getting a lot more with that deal that you propose. So yeah, I think it's always smart when you can to take advantage of those types of situations. So before we go, we want to know, where can we find you? And thank you for being here today. This has been great.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks for having me. I am on social medias like Instagram. You can find me with my name, Mac Jeffrey. You can also find me on TikTok nowadays with the same name, Mac Jeffrey. But I also just started my YouTube page with named Luxury Travel POV.
Mac, thanks for being here. And I do want to point out that you might want to check out his content because he has some of the most amazing drone shots that I've seen on social media. Do check those out. I love those drone shots, McJeffrey. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Miguel.
I do too. Mac, can you let us know what other future trips you have planned?
The most exciting trip that I have with the family now is I'm going to Hawaii for the first time with the kids. So it's coming up pretty soon, next month. And the one trip that we have coming up in the fall is we are going to Southeast Asia in Bali for the first time. So that would be amazing.
That is so great and so timely because our next episode is going to be about Southeast Asia and how you can get there and stay there with points and miles.
Also, I'll be tuning in.
That's it for now. I want to thank all of our hosts. It's Serena.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Miguel.
Later.
And Mac, you were incredible. Will you please come back?
Sure. Thanks, Mitch.
And I'm Mitch Shane, and make sure you sign up for our email newsletter. Just snap the QR code right now on your screen for the latest and everything going on in the points and miles world. And as Serena said, get ready. Next time, we are taking you to Southeast Asia on another destination guide show using points and miles with Lynn from the YouTube channel Peach Bunny Escapes. I like that. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching and listening.
Let's get to the points.com.